Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending this afternoon's webinar. I'd like to welcome Rock from PredictLeads. This is a joint webinar from Lead Onion and PredictLeads, and it's based around how supercharge your funnel with Lead Onion and PredictLeads, and a sort of overview of buyer intent and how Lead Onion and PredictLeads sort of collaborate to bring more intent data. So if I may, just introductions. The host today are myself. I'm Michael Carlin, founder and CEO of Lead Onion. And I'd like to welcome Rock. Rock, you just want to give a quick introduction?
Yeah, hi, Michael. It's Rock from PredictLeads, one of the co-founders. I guess PredictLeads, yeah, we provide company-level data that's indicative or should be indicative of company performance, but I guess we'll discuss more in our webinar.
Excellent, excellent. So just to guys set the agenda for the webinar, sort of at the first initial would be sort of an overview of intent data. Then we had looked at sort of single source versus multi-source, that PredictLeads themselves have multiple intent sources and we have multiple intent sources, so combining those together. And then we'll look at some of the specific intent signals from PredictLeads. I'll look at from a Lead Onion point of view of how we then use those intent signals, and then we'll have a Q&A session then as well. Okay. Sorry guys, just rules are sort of, I've put it on mute here. Anybody's got a question, just please use the Q&A or put a hand up and we can then unmute if you have any questions or anything. Okay. So set the context, guys. The importance of intent data is becoming more and more important. As everybody knows today, lead generation for most companies, particularly in the B2B sector, is getting harder and harder. Budgets are getting squeezed. Decision makers are turning off to the spray and pray marketing tactics that used to work. Changes on a technical level with Google and Microsoft in relation to how many emails, etc., can be sent from mailboxes. The amount of tools on the markets, the integrations, cold calling getting more difficult. So generally, over the last couple of years, it's got harder and harder to get in front of people. So the basics of intent data are effectively is that to focus on people who are in market. So aim for the companies who are already looking to buy. So buyer intent data, is used to indicate a potential customer's interest and indicate where they are on their buyer's journey. And typically it's used by tracking online, analyzing behaviors, searches, content downloads, etc., and then trying to pick up these breadcrumbs of intent to give you an informed decision of when companies are becoming more likely to purchase. Okay, so why would you use buyer intent? And it has been shown that for 66% of companies it has improved targeting, which is only logical, is that you're selling to people and trying to reach people who are already part on their buyer's journey. Again, it shortens the sales cycle. Again, is that for 55% of companies, you can get in front of people earlier or later in their journey, but before people have started interacting with them. It enhances the lead quality, again, that you're only trying to reach out and engage with people who are in their buying cycle. And ultimately, 70% of B2B companies have found higher sales, increased sales by using buyer intent data. So with that, one of the this is called the 3% rule, which is understanding buyer segments. Is for most B2B companies, only approximately 10% of companies are in market at any point in time. So again, the spray and pray approach means that an awful lot of time, effort, and money is wasted. So the focus is to focus on people who are in that top 10%, who are either active buyers or in the intent to change, so that you try to get in front of those using intent signals as early in the process as possible. So this is also then, this is a Gartner buyer's journey map which basically shows that for most companies or a company going through a procurement process, and this is at an enterprise level, but it's exactly the same at a SME level, is there are multiple different touch points through the buying process, from identifying we've got a problem through the exploration, building out the requirements and selecting. And a lot of these are web searches, downloading web pages, visiting websites, seeing people are building out teams, seeing that they've made an announcement of funding, etc. So its intent is based on picking up a lot of these signals before they get to basically reaching out to a sales guy. And one of the key stats today probably is that 83% of prospects' time is not spent interacting with suppliers. So 83% of the research is being done before they talk to a salesperson. So it's critically important to get in front of people earlier in the stage, because again, by the time they talk to a salesperson, a lot of the decision is already made. So with that in mind, a lot of companies, without using intent signals, their first signal is when somebody signs up to take a demo. And for a lot of times, that is either too late in the process, or you'll be very lucky to get somebody to take a demo because you haven't been able to build a relationship and get in front of them before. Now, in the market today, there are a lot of different, you would say, intent signals, intent providers. There are companies that have a network to track web searches. There's online search, downloading white papers, technology signals, hiring signals, testimonials, etc. So there's a plethora of different signals across the roadmap in relation to somebody buying a new product. And what we're going to talk about today is, in conjunction with PredictLeads, PredictLeads is specialist in picking up a lot of these specific signals. And that's where we're partnered with them to be able to pick up these signals across the buyer's journey. So typical of those signals would be technology signals, where somebody would is maybe buying a new piece of technology or has a technology install. There's hiring signals in relation to people who are recruiting for specific jobs. There's technology announcements, etc. So these are all good, solid buyer intent signals that somebody is going to be doing something in the immediate or near future. Okay. So Rock, if you don't mind, if I could just, within that context, if you could sort of just, elaborate in relation to PredictLeads.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So introduction to PredictLeads. I guess I can speak a bit more about what kind of signals we can, detect or serve the sales team, so they can be more, I guess, being relevant is becoming more and more important. So, like you've shown in the previous slides, the buyer journey is complicated. It's lots of steps, lots of breadcrumbs that they're leaving behind that sales teams or in technology vendors can detect and then use, right? Because like you said, spray and pray approaches don't work anymore. Just one stat here. So relevant emails receive some 37% more positive replies. Relevant meaning what? Meaning not just, for example, acknowledging that the company, maybe congratulating them on the recent funding, or personalizing in a way where you personalize their name, right? Hi, Mike, right? So I guess today, outbound sales teams are becoming more and more, they're using more and more signals to become more relevant, right? So basically, like you have it in Lead Onion, right? So tying a bit why you're reaching out, right? What you saw on the website, on the breadcrumbs that the prospects have left behind online, how this connects to your offering. Maybe we can switch to the next slide, and maybe I can discuss a bit let's say the 4 data points you provide. I guess you provide a few more, but these will be the ones we'll be discussing today: the jobs data or hiring intent data, news events, technographics, and financing events. These are some of the signals. Maybe we can skip to the first one. So the next slide, to the jobs data. Perfect. So yeah, PredictLeads tracks some 75 million companies globally. We have jobs data at any point in time. We know of 7 million job postings that are active. How jobs data is being used by the sales teams. For example, let's say you're selling marketing automation product. Companies hiring for marketing in the marketing department are much more likely to look into your solution, to try it out. It looks like they have the money, they are expanding, right? They are hiring, and if they're hiring in the category of products you're selling, that much the better. So this can be used either in emails, via LinkedIn messaging, on cold calls, and so on. I guess the platforms like Lead Onion can use this data also to score leads based off of this criteria. So maybe your customers already have, let's say, some lead lists you want to go after. Maybe you want to first start or prioritize companies that are hiring. Potentially, the more they're hiring, the better. Yeah, maybe we can skip to the next slide. And there's news data. I guess news data has been around for a while. PredictLeads, we track some 18 million individual blogs, PR sites, news sites, and detect structured news events like products companies launch, locations they expand to, C-level changes, new integrations companies do, new partnerships, and so on. I guess this provides a bit of like they say, 360-degree view of a company. So before jumping on a call to check the latest around the company, it can also be used depending on your service, right? Depending on what you're selling. If there's a signal, let's say if you're a design agency, right, you might be more interested in signals in product launches. When companies maybe launch new products, you can help them with new designs or with A/B testing. If they some of our partners would check financing events. So this news events also covers the financing events. So when companies receive funding, for example, they typically have 18 months to spend that money. So if a company raises Series B, 15 million, they would need to spend that money. So it's a good time to reach out. I guess it's a bit, maybe we at PredictLeads would not recommend mentioning this and maybe congratulating them on the funding round, but complementing this with other signals. So it's good to reach out at a time after a company receives funding, but then using some other signals like technographics or jobs data, and have that as a why you're reaching out, right? And not because you raise money, you have the money, I want to sell to you now. Okay, we can skip to the next one. Yeah, I guess the technologies. There we go. Technographics data. So PredictLeads, we track some 30,000 different technologies. These would be technologies like HubSpot. So who's using HubSpot? Who's using Salesforce, Marketo, and so on? Again, like with the news data, I guess your customers, Michael, would know what kind of technologies are typical for their prospects, what kind of typical technologies their prospects would use. If they can name them, or they would know what kind of technologies are typical, they can use this for targeting. For example, if you are a company offering cybersecurity, for example, you might want to target companies using, for example, Zscaler, which is a cybersecurity tool, right? So okay, if a company is using Zscaler, they are doing something in cybersecurity. We have this other cybersecurity product. It's much more likely that these 7,400 companies that are using Zscaler, will be more likely to look into our solution, to jump with us on a call and see if there's a fit. Technologies data, maybe I might add here, if your customers, right? So if any of the listeners have any technologies that are maybe not yet tracked by PredictLeads, or you don't see in Lead Onion, you can let us know, and we normally in under 1 week time can add them and can identify often hundreds of matches within 1 week. And I guess this is it from my end. Let's see the next slide. Back to you, Michael.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rock. Okay. So guys, taking that in context, then just a quick overview of how Lead Onion uses the intent sources. So as we say, we have PredictLeads for the funding, events, download, or hiring signals. But we would then combine that with other partners, Bombora, Continuity, Cognism, Foundry. So overall, we have approximately 20 unique sources of intent, strong top industry partnerships like PredictLeads, which creates a huge then intent data lake. Now, what we do then, as we'll show, is that we validate and predict those signals. Because as Rock said, is that the more signals that you can layer on top of each other, the more nuance it gives to the intent. And then we create what we call a buyer's research quadrant that takes each of the sources, validates them against each other, and then sort of tries to predict in what we call the quadrant. So the quadrant then would take all of the companies that we get across all of the sources of intent we've got, and then try to tick the top 10%. So as we say, 10% being the 10% who are in market. So this would be an example of one of our sort of lead quadrants or research quadrants. You can see up in the top left here, the 10%. That means less than just approximately 10% of all of the companies that we got through our surge or through our intent signals and partners. Only 10% of them then make it into this quadrant. And to make it into the quadrant, then we then analyze it and say, some are at initial stage. And when we say initial, it's initial within the top 10%, interested, active, and in depth. And in that way, it's be able to show that, as the slide I showed earlier, the top 10% are in buying, are beginning to hopefully show buying signals. What the quadrant does is take that 10% and break it then down into initial, interested, active, and in depth. And I'll show in a second how we do that. So this is an example of, from a lead onion, where we would look at, say, a company that was in depth or showing multiple intent signals. So for example, the icons there, the three are the spikes, which show intensity, and then the different icons are the different sources we would get it from. So what we would do then is combine those. So for example, for this company at the top, it's had a change in leadership. It's announced a partnership. It's got Bombora. It's showing increased surge through the topics selected for continuity, and then similarly another search on Bombora. And then the one that's highlighted there again is somebody is hiring for specific roles, two different sets increasing their hiring, but also is searching for topics that are relevant within that company. So therefore, that's, as we were saying, is layering on the different types of intent so that you can pick the companies that are closer to being in market. And then from a lead onion perspective, what we also do then is then that we take those signals. We have a database where we can then append the relevant contacts to the companies that are showing the highest intent, and then provide the mechanisms whereby then you can start your outreach via email, multi-channel, LinkedIn, phone calls, and direct outreach, or via the platform that you can then send it to multiple different through HubSpot, Salesforce, or Dynamics. So overall, we've taken the sources, validating it, predicting it, and then being able to action it immediately and get out in front of the competition, or get out in front of your clients before the competition. Okay, so very briefly, just to look at that in slightly more detail within the platform. So this is an example of this is a lead onion dashboard for lead onion that I just created before the call. So basically, then we would you can create context for the respective company, but then this would be an example of the data coming through the settings that would have been set up. So we set up the settings for all of the individual sources that come in. And then within that, you can see then, so Bombora would be bringing in here, would be hiring for specific roles from PredictLeads. We would then have continuity, hiring a new technology would be that lead info has been added to this customer, etc. So this brings in all of the data. And on the side, we have a thing then called spikes, which then measure the intensity of that signal, depending how you've set the signals up. And then just to look at it a bit more detail. So over the last 14 days, it will just show all of the different intent sources across all of for this company across the 14 days. So each day, for example, we can see conferences, expansion, competitors, hiring, leadership, investments, and also topics across the multiple different companies. So this would be all the sources. And then here would be an example then of how these are then broken up into the interested, the initial, the active, and the in-depth. And then focusing on the industries, and then what are the top intent signals as well that is driving each of the individual sources. So just if I just very quickly sort of show how it comes together then. So for example, then within the quadrant, you have the interested, the initial, the active, and the in-depth. And then if we just go straight to say the in-depth, this would be our definition of companies that are showing intent across multiple different sources. So again, if we take one here, this would be, again, somebody's hiring for specific roles that we're tracking. This is then spiked on Bombora in that it's showing a lot of topics that we're looking for. And then similarly on continuity, that searches have been so across the different networks. And then again, we can then track that down to see that the specific roles that are being hired for and where the other signals are coming from. And the position lead on is these are companies that we should be reaching out to now, because they're exhibiting those breadcrumbs across multiple different areas for intent signals. So guys, just that's sort of the conclusion to the sort of overview, the webinar. Would anybody have any questions? Open just. You just want to, if you put your hand up, I can unmute if anybody would like to ask a question. Or feel free to ask Rock. There's funny, is there? Yep. 1 second.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just wondering, Michael, if you have seen with Lead Onion and Simplify, which intent signals have made the biggest impact, and are certain intent signals more relevant for different industries, for example, tech or healthcare?
Yeah, a great question. It's one of those ones, unfortunately, it does depend. There are very sector specific ones. I think in the recruitment obviously area, we do a lot with, they'd be more interested in the sort of the hiring signals and events and investments type things. On the sort of the B2B software, it would be more on the topics and the and cybersecurity, et cetera, as well. And they'd more lean towards sort of topic research based, where they can see that people are beginning to research information and the specific topics that people are consuming. But what we're also finding is because we would have this sort of third level, which would be the topics based, and then the second level where you can see people downloads, and then first party is where you actually have your own website. You know, and the holy grail is to get somebody, if you know what I mean, to track them across all of them, you know, whether you can see that they're doing the third party across multiple, they're downloading, and then they actually visit your site as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Could you speak more about, sorry, Robert.
Yeah, I have a question.
Please.
Since you presented so many data sets, and what are the biggest challenge in like using multi-source intent data like effectively?
I'd say that the challenge of using effective is there is a plethora of them out there, if you know what I mean. Where we're trying to position ourselves is to take that false flag out, because you can use one individual one, but you know, at times that needs to be validated across multiple different ones, if you know what I mean. I think the single biggest challenge in intent data is the volume of data. You know, it is voluminous. And where we're from a Lead Onion perspective, where we're trying to differentiate ourselves is the respect of being able to layer on the different sources that are independent, that validate each other, and then remove the 85 or 90% that is just noise or false flags. But it is an indicator. All we're saying is it's a better indicator than it would be in isolation.
Thank you. And just a follow-up question: since companies such as LeadOnion, this is something like new on the market, are there any like common mistakes that your users are making when leveraging intent data?
Being overly picky, Robert, if you know what I mean. It is a still, you can't cherry pick the intent out of the in-depth, but it's still not an exact science, if you know what I mean. So you've got to work on it again. It's like the law of numbers, is that we've narrowed it down to the 90% and then the 10%, but then it's getting in front of all of those. But it's difficult to try and have a specific individual account activation on intent data. So we would say it feeds into sort of broad activation, multi-channel. Where we've seen it work well is that some of our clients would take our initial and put it into digital ads. Then they would take the interested and put it into their marketing. Then they would take the active, give it to their SDRs, and then for their in-depth, give it to their ADs or direct sales guys. So it is part of sort of integrating it into your overall process.
Thank you.
Rock, yeah.
Yeah, thanks much, Michael. Just want to ask, so I've seen, I guess, how you inside LeadOnion, how you already use large language models, right, to create the outbound messaging. Maybe what are some of the other exciting updates that you're currently working on at LeadOnion?
It would be the activation piece, right? You're saying is that taking well, one of the things we're working on as well is the being able to take the intent data and immediately activate on it again, because the once you've identified intent signals, by definition, it means that somebody's in market. You can't spend a lot of time thinking about it and doing it, if you know what I mean. So it's time to activate now. So it's that speed to getting in front of people. So we do have tools in the platform as well, which is, ready built cadences. So those cadences, we use the sort of AI to build the context from the company. The next thing would be is to take each of those intent signals and embed that in as personalization as well. So you can use it in addition to the sort of lead generation prioritization, is then actually then embed the intent signal into the outreach. So it is specific.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Any other questions, anyone? Okay, excellent. Well, thank you. If I may, Rock, thank you for participation today. Really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody on the call for turning up. If anybody on the call would like to take you can go to LeadOnion. You can then set up your own account and get the signals for the last 14 days. So please feel free to go there, set up your own account. And if anything I can help with, just reach out directly at michael@leadonion.com or .ai. Apologies. Okay.
Thank
you very much, guys.
for having us.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice one.